Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. Have everyone have taken your lunch? No. I'm so sorry. We do not have lunch here. Yeah. Welcome to Penang Institute. I'm Xiaowun. Welcome once again. Thanks a lot for spending your Christmas weekend with us. I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of the PAM Northern Chapter as well as Penang Institute for attending this symposium, Critical Issues in Architecture and Planning. Today we have a very interesting panel. As you can see, I shall not block them. As you can see, we have Datuk Seri as our moderator, a man who do not need any more introduction, but I still need to, introduce him, as everyone who are here would remember him as the PAM Gold Medallist, the SIA Gold Medallist, the architect who built Kheng, the urban planner who had a lot of work outside of Malaysia and within Malaysia, the botanist who have named more than 40 plants, palms and ginger. 70. Sorry, I didn't do my homework well. So, okay, 70 palms and ginger. That's what all of you may remember him as. But I remember him as the person who lands me a job at Penang Institute. That is 12 years ago. Okay, so anyway, so Datuk Seri will be chairing this session, moderating this interesting symposium, together with 3 very knowledgeable panelists. We have Mr. Dickinson, the 5th Singapore SIA Gold Medallist, the 6th Gold Medallist, Mr. Siong, as well as Mr. Raymond Wu, the 9th Gold Medallist SIA. So without further ado, without taking more time from all of you, Datuk Seri, over to you.
Thank you, Xiaowun. This is an unusual event, and I really felt very glad that both the Penang Institute and the Northern Chapter have readily agreed to this unusual event, where I had 3 friends visiting Penang who were spending a few days before Christmas here, and I said they should not be wasting their time just eating laksa or whatever. They should interface with especially the young architects within the Northern Chapter and use this as an opportunity to talk critically about issues in architecture and planning. Now, I have a bit of a background in thinking about this subject. To be critical, stop talking about the great successes, talk about the bad things. You've got to know what is the worst things that's happening to improve. So that's a hint where we're going to go. But what I propose to do is to ask each of them to tell you a bit about their own work, especially Raymond, who's the newly minted gold medalist in Singapore. And you're going to be treated because he has never shown this even in Singapore, his work. So Penang is the premier of his work. And then we have Cheng, who actually is almost as old as I am. But seriously, he has got an amazing background because he turned Shenzhen from a paddy field into a multi-billion high-tech center. So his experience in China, he's actually Singapore's contribution to the development of China. Kheng needs no introduction because he will be able to speak for himself. So we'll come to him. So very quickly, before I call Raymond, you'll test your mic. I want to make a bit of a joke because one way of talking about critical issues in architecture and planning is to tell you that they have planned very nicely. There's a nice toilet down the corridor. It's very critical that you know where the toilets are in planning and architecture. So over to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Chairman, Datuk Chong. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Better now. Well, I want to thank Datuk Lim for inviting me here. It was quite sudden for me. In fact, I was lost for 50 years. Nobody found me. And he's quite right. And I never showed any work that I have done simply because I was extremely busy being a one-man show, working for 50 years. It's very clear that what I have done and I'm going to tell you how I do it and why I do it. And he's talking about issues. And to me, every one of my project is a lot of issues. Some of them are construction, some, of course, even legal. Then I have to wrangle myself out of legal tussles, which is not mine, but even tussle within the clients themselves. So, as time goes on, I said, look, I've just got to concentrate on my work. And when that happens, I end up with no time coming out to socialize. And so work, I have the blessing to have a constant client who's been giving me work all these years, but not forgetting the fact that every job takes about 8-9 years to complete, inclusive planning, arguments, decisions, construction time. So when you look at it, 50 years of work is not that many jobs, if it is big enough to warrant your attention for details, administration, costing, programs, schedules. These are work that I have been dealing with for the last 50 years. So I'm going to start off with the kind of job that I have done all these years. The first job, this is a President Award that I have received some 2016, and some of the works that I have done all these years, and I shall now deal with them one by one. The first job, of course, was the outcome of the Jurong Town Hall, which I have worked with Dr. Datuk Chong, and after which, immediately after that, there was a competition on Science Center, and I decided to design a building which is close to the Jurong Town Hall, which emulates the work that Dr. Lim and myself worked on. So that is the Science Center there, which was the outcome of a competition, done in concrete. Basically, it was a mosaic, A10 mosaic, which I used, which was rather good for maintenance. So, based on hexagon again, that's how the whole plan was worked out. You can see the triangles, and that's a basic plan where I had three galleries: one life science, one science and tech, one exhibition for special exhibits, and all the workshops are surrounding this. And you can see that direction of flow from entrance to the galleries are straightforward. And I put all the workshop at the back, and they are directly feeding the galleries with the exhibits which they make themselves. There's the lobby, and floor above the library, canteen, and special project room. The next floor, all the laboratories, which is, you see the void, you get all the laboratories looking into the void. Then, of course, the top floor for total administration. A very simple project. This is the workflow, traffic flow for people, workshop, and it's a very simple plan. The section, you see the two galleries, the labs, and extension on top. That was the final result of how it looks like in the end. Unfortunately, it will not look like that anymore. Over the last 50 years, there was quite a lot of vandalism on it. Some additions, alterations, which was done without my notice, without even consulting the original design. So right now, I don't think it looks like that anymore. And also there was talk about tearing it down. So we're still waiting. So that was the time, 1970s, 1973 completion. That is, now not forgetting, sorry, these drawings were done by hand, by pens, by perspectives. Those were the day we had to, there was no computers, so we really have to do it ourselves. Not as good as today, but it makes sense. There's an actual building when completed. I remember the trees were very small at the time. The minister asked me, where are all your beautiful trees that you drawn on the drawings? I said, they're there. So you have to wait for another 15 years. So that's a picture of how it was. It's beginning to be mangled. Now that's the next job which I landed was the Singapore Airlines engineering hangar, which was able to put in 3 jumbo hangars at that time, supposed to be the largest in the world. And it was designed by Dr. Y.S. Lau, the late Dr. Y.S. Lau, the roof. The concrete part of the building was designed by O.V. Orak and Partners. So this is a very interesting building because the whole building is, the roof truss is supported onto the concrete base. There's more engineering work on this one. How the roof was built in Batam, shipped into Singapore. They built railways and pulled into the hangar site, raised the roof truss by 3 meters high, and then did all the services on ground so that they can save money on insurances, having to raise it up. All the services were mounted onto the roof, and then they had to jack it up. The jacking was done by hydraulic jacks on the rooftop. It took about 2 weeks to finish all the jacking. It was quite a spectacle at the time. It was on television and everything. It was actually built by Lord Kheng, which I think Dr. Lim knows about. Dr. Kheng. That's the actual building. The heavy cost for fire is there because the fire they use a protein foam to rather than ordinary sprinklers. It's too high up. That's the internal. That's how they service the aircraft. You can see right at the end there is a tele platform which is used for moving around, doing spray painting on the aircraft. I can't talk too much on each of the job because these are quite a lot of details in it. Okay, so I want to go a bit faster because otherwise my good friend might be very happy to have a nap for all. So this is a stage for painting. There was a time where the Singapore Airlines had the Boeings. Now, this is a job that I did not totally in brickwork. Now, those days there was people that do plaster and paint all, and then I decided to talk to Singapore Airlines and say, look, why don't we do something you don't have to maintain for life? They thought I was joking, see? So I used the brickwork. But I tell you, big issues. All the jobs had big issues. This issue led me nearly to court because brickwork in that kind of capacity and size, you always end up with efflorescence. The efflorescence keeps oozing out of the joints. Eventually, we had to have quite a bit of a repair on the wall, but took about almost a year to repair it. At that time, I already had a lot of problems from the client, but the client was very understanding. The buyers are the ones that gave me a lot of headache in the end. And they tried to sue the Singapore Airlines and indirectly suing me. But somehow or other, we got rid of these joints problem, and till today, you can go and see this building. It's in Loyang, Singapore. They are still in very good shape. Not a single paint was needed to paint it up. So there was paint. These issues we also, I think I learned a lot from it. In every single job that I did all these 50 years, I learned a lot. And honestly, I cannot regret. But also at the same time, it was fearful, stressful. You can see all the fluorescence is off. It's still nice and clean now. You can go and see, and if you ever go down to Singapore, look for this project. It's still there. And recently they want to sell the whole, some en bloc sales so that they can tear down the whole project and rebuild, asking for more plot ratio. Unfortunately, they couldn't sell it. Everybody wants to stay in. They don't want to accept. They were offered more than $2 million. At that time, they bought it for 150,000. You can see the amount of profit they can reap out of it, and yet they failed to sell. They failed to buy it. Yeah, it's a nice little village inside there, and internally you see it's the blocks are surrounding a big green area where they use it for swimming pool, jogging. Now you see there are some the fluorescence on the right hand side is not totally finished yet. It took time for the calcium to come off the line. It's another view of it. So you can see the inside is very decent landscape space you can get out of it. That's the first job I did in Singapore. That's based on pre-finished building using granite. And the owner loves this building because he thinks the red granite is good for them. He says a Teochew. Oh, they love red, you know. So we have the source of red, which is this is called Carmen red from Italy. Okay. Now, after the job complete, they gave me this job. Now, this is the biggest problem I had. And what was the biggest job too? The biggest problem is we don't know that there are three owners eventually. Owners in the sense that they're big enough to call the shots. The major owner, of course, is Ngee themselves. It all belongs to Ngee, where I think Dr. Lim knows that our original office was from there. So we took this whole place, allowed us to build the plot ratio calls for 2 tower blocks and 1 shopping mall. And of course, being Chinese, they want some kind of Orientalism inside this building, although so we try and make it as modern as we can. So based on that, of course, we use the same kind of mold we had for the previous project and pass it on to here and worked on it as well, because the timing was 42 months completion, which was very difficult. But of course, we had a very good contractor, Simizu, who guaranteed they can do it in 42 months. And he did in the end. But of course, in the 42 months was not very funny, because we had problems with the Japanese departmental store who came in, demanded to put in extra escalators without giving extra time. So we went on like good boys, put in the escalators without asking for extra time. So in the end of the day, Simizu claimed for 4 months extension of time. 4 months extension of time equaled about $35 million. Now, who's going to pay for it? It's only the architect, because you delay the drawings, you delay. So in the end of the day, we said, okay, look, I've got proof that you gave me the drawings. When did you give it to me? I've got to change my drawings. Contractor go to repile or build additional piles, order additional escalators, which takes about 8 months to arrive. So these are things that was never accounted for. But you being a young architect, you're a good boy, so you didn't take much notice of it, but it actually is a very dangerous kind of situation where we were handed a letter to pay for the 35 million. Where I got 35 million to pay? I just started the job not long ago. We could feed an office. So therefore, you will look, every job that we do, these issues are hidden. And when it's hidden, I tell you, when it comes up, it catch you. So finally, we even have to go and see a lawyer. Gave him more. Luckily, the most important thing I want to tell you guys is, please document every event. Because without documentation, you can't prove it, you're not going to win. You're going to get paid. You may have to, I've got a pair of trousers to give you this power. So finally, I said, my lawyer said, show me your documents. He read the documents, took a month. He said, let's fight. Don't pay. And finally, I decided to also resign at the same time. So when I resigned, they got panicky. They went to Tokyo, to the Japanese. They said, we can't let this boy resign because we already put it in newspapers and television that we're opening in 1993. So I said, now I got you. I'm going to resign. Because when I resign, it takes a few years to settle my bill and the court. Finally, they said, Mr. Wu, can you reconsider not resigning? I said, okay. You put additional fees for my pains, then I'll start again. So they did in the end. They said, please come back. So these are pains that you don't know it will happen. So that I want to tell you guys, if you take on a job like that, you may have the kind of problem because this means money for them. Lack of not opening late. One day delay is 250,000 Sing dollars. I can see you closing your eyes, imagining it. So you think about 4 months, you multiply yourself. So I couldn't sleep. My family couldn't sleep. We didn't even talk about every day I come back with a long face. So therefore, when being an architect, I think Dr. Lim says, okay, critical issues. These are very critical. And every job has issues. And you've got to really single out the dangers that you're going in. You don't know what will happen to you. So finally, we went out of court, job completed. So this is where the plan is. We were asked to give a civic plaza to the government. We gave it. So they were inspirations, of course, from St. Peter's of Rome. The plaza in front. And the shop surrounding it, a large atrium. And the large atrium is the feet from left to right. Left-hand side is Takashimaya. The right-hand side is Takashimaya's subsidiary company called Toshin. So they took over the whole building. They took over all the whole building and they just rented it out. On the left-hand side is department store. On the right-hand side is individual rental, like Gucci, long van, there's people comes in. At the back, you see there's a driveway. We can't bring our cars in front because Orchard Road is taboo for any cars going into buildings. So we had to go to the back. The back is higher than the front by 1 floor, which means that I have to, it's a good thing for me because on level 2, I have a ground floor. On level 1, I also have a ground floor. So that was why they were so happy. And in any case, they were very unhappy that I gave the plaza away. But these are also issues. We had to fight your way out. They, I lost all my frontage. Raymond, I said, no, you didn't lose the frontage. You see, you get a semicircular frontage. In fact, you got more. So I said, you measure and see who's longer. So finally, the Teochew boy said, okay, let go. So these are issues that comes about whether you like it or not. You got to tell them that. So that's how the whole thing, we have very important mass rapid transit going underground, coming to this place. So this is strategic. It's a strategic place. And I was about 55 years old at the time when I finished this job. There's a typical floor plan of the office. That's the section. The section tells a lot of story. There you see the atrium. Car park on top, car park at the bottom. In between is all departmental stores. The 2 towers are offices. They tell me, why does it look like a Chinese building? I say, well, it's Chinese association. So you got a great wall of China as well, and 2 tower block called, this is a section that shows everything. That's a typical panel that I use for precast pre-finished. So when we were doing it at the time, you don't have to do any more finishing after completion of the job, because the building is erected just this way. Once it's completed, it's finished. One of these panels is about 12 tons, and they can only be erected at night. Yes? Okay. Front entrance. Now, there's a last project I did about a couple of years ago, and it's called 268. Now, the owner of this building is still Nian. So I asked him, what do you want me to do now? You ran out of granite. He said, I don't want granite anymore. That's another issue. Can you do it in glass? I said, okay, can I do part glass? I was scared, because I don't like to do glass, frankly. But I want it all glass, all the way, from top to bottom. So that was how I started. It's a double glaze. In the center, we have a layer of argon gas to take the heat off. And he erected this whole building. And internally, we have cables to support the glass roof, because it basically is a rat cage. If you have caught a rat with a cage, you see that it's all squares. There you are. And these cables are pulling it to brace all the glass panels on top. It's a very exciting building, actually. It's totally rented out now. Nike took the 4 floors. At nighttime, it becomes very exciting, because originally this building is supposed to be for selling of diamonds, gemstones. So that is the reason why I had this idea of looking like, again, gemstone and the facade of it. And that's how the internal looks like. It's a staggered building. Yes. The reason why we had cables is because we originally had columns. We took away the columns because it's going to block all the Gucci signs. So the only way to do it is cables. There you are, brothers and sisters looking at one another. Nia at the back. There's no ceiling there. The cables become the ceiling.
With the engineers.
The engineer is a local Singapore engineer, but the facade engineer who did the glass was an Englishman, my good friend, Hugh Dutton. Hugh Dutton did he did about 5 solutions before finally we come to this cable system. He said, I'm good, Raymond, you will like it. So he came to Singapore, showed it, we showed to the client. The client didn't understand what's going on, so I said, let's do it. So sometimes it's good to do something that the client don't understand. But this is the first job I ever done in my life. The client didn't even go to the site. He only visited the site once. To sit, not on the site, the workshop, to sit down and tested the toilet. He said that's a good toilet.
But you're lucky, because in Singapore, you're not allowed to throw stones.
I know. But you see, I have 2 buildings protecting this. This is setback. That's the UOB Bank upstairs. That's the back. Now, that's the back. Is all the services are done. Is automatic car parking system, which is really very bad. We told them you shouldn't do that. But then they said, never mind. No, I don't want to spend money on the basement. That's how. So thank you very much for everything.
I think really we give him an applause. And what you've realized is that this is a man who's involved with all his buildings. It's just not a name fronting an organization. He's involved with all the details, all the crisis and the success and all the problems. And that is actually the message. As against a lot of brand names today, famous names are being branded. One which I think we should all examine is a thing called Ilham Tower in KL today. And I would like to slip in a thought which many of us have discussed. How do we recognize good architecture in our own country? It is really the good buildings done by your local architects not imported architects. I think this is a critical issue that you have to take. So there are many projects done by overseas people, fronted by local who just sign the plans. That's not the way to go. That's actually one of the critical things happening in the world of architecture, and encroachment by foreign architects.
Absolutely. Because I want to add something there, because when I was doing this project, my client called me up and said, Raymond, who is your overseas consultant? I said, I don't have any. He said, keep it that way, because if I find out you have fun, I'm going to sack you. And he did say, he was serious about it.
Thank you, Raymond. Now we better turn over to Cheng Siong. Are you?
Let me operate this. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Good. All right, now, I better arrange spaces and places. The things I'm going to talk about needs a lot of spaces. Because when I first got to read the title given to us, there was critical issues in architecture and planning. So I asked myself, where's the man? Where is society? Where's neighbors? Where's communities? I'm more concerned on that aspect of architecture and planning, because after all, we are doing this for the citizens. So now, that's why my presentation here covers quite a lot of things, but I hope I can rush it through. Anyway, just to run through quickly, I got 5 items there. First one is about a free nation. Singapore became a free nation, and that means population problem came up. It's not just a matter of the hardware, it's really the software that occupied, I would say, the PAP government. They were very sensitive to the needs of the squatters, how to clear them, how to clear all the bad things that was happening in the early days under the colonial masters. So as a free nation, there is a responsibility to keep people happy. So therefore, architecture has taken a new responsibility under a new type of government. So that's why I think my subject will be of interest to some of us, or most of us. Okay, stage 1 in Singapore's struggle to become a country, a nation, and a city that is well recognized. And now I think we have succeeded quite well. Under Lee Kuan Yew, who somehow, as a lawyer, he seemed to understand the physical aspect of a city, the physical aspect of the people, and the social and cultural dimensions of how to create better architecture and better planning. So these multitude of things are getting together. And Singapore, I must dare say, and claim even, that we have done a good job so far. So stage 1 was under Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. He actually broke through, and then he built public housing, and then he even considered there should be no more terrace houses, no more semi-detached houses, because take up too much land. How can Singapore accommodate so many people when everybody wants a piece of land for himself? So took a brave, very, very brave decision. No more landed property, apartments, new towns, and of course condominiums was a new subject that confronted the government and the architects actually. And actually, I must say that also in those days, architects were rather basic in terms of knowledge and concern about social issues. We were really talking about structures and talking about spaces. Now, spaces alone is not enough. We should be talking about places, and that's architecture, planning, and people. If you cannot see it in these 4 dimensions, then I think we have not done a good job. Okay, 50 years ago, we can forgive architects who just concentrate on spaces. But I think going on, if you don't include places into your game, then I think we would have again misgiven our responsibility. Number two came under Goh Chok Tong, and then of course succeeded by Lee Hsien Loong, the son of Lee Kuan Yew. Now this group of people, the second generation of PAP government, took on infrastructure in a very serious way. After the initial stage, we were able and prepared to go global. And that's why we wanted a global city. And hence, anything goes. We pay airport, seaport, and then CBD. And then, of course, new towns. My God, we now have 27 and going to 30 new towns. And each of these new towns have their own problems. And in fact, it's a very, very challenging story of which I'm deeply engaged in terms of its intellectual possibilities and its physical transformation. Now, this is something also getting on to big issues. Then came the third stage now. This third stage is what exactly facing the present generation of architects, planners, and citizens. Because it is no more just for the trade, it's no more just for the infrastructure, it's no more for transportation. Oh my God, we're very good at transportation. We got MRT lines, so many stations, and 3 million people travel our MRT every day. And I was surprised to learn that, Penang has got a totally different system. You don't need MRT. You only wanted cars, and you are very happy with your cars. And I can appreciate why. However, in Singapore, we have a different challenge, and we're now taking on this third stage of transformation. And that means human focus. And that human focus means people living in the new towns must be satisfied. I can dare say, well, no PAP government here now. Oh yeah, oh I see. Now we are faced with, actually, we are faced with how to make our 5 million people in our new towns happy. Oh, we have everything. We have all our infrastructure done. Fantastic. Highways, MRTs, schools, hospitals, everything. Housing, everything. And we are silly enough to think about 50-story housing for Singapore population. I think that's another unforgivable mistake of administration in certain sector. But we got carried away. The Singapore administration and Singapore infrastructure managers and architects and tenants working in there do not have a larger vision of the world of the future. Now, the future is very, very, very challenging. That is why I'm interested in your Penang. Certain aspect of it, I find it very interesting and very challenging. I'm going to learn more. Unfortunately, I'm not qualified to talk about Penang at all. But I'm sure if I look into it, I can see something. Just as Datuk, when I was his student, he saw the number of things that we never ever dreamt of is necessary just to learn architecture. How can you must involve in so many things, so that you are in the same way to be an architect in the present world. You need a lot more than just getting to know the building. After all, building is engineering. After all, a building is in AI. After all, building is robotics. That's what's going to control our physical things. But the human element is something that is really very nebulous and very difficult to get to know. So I'm trying to suggest, oh my God, I'm being carried away with just the introduction.
What's your timing?
Sorry, sir. Because the subject is so big and so complicated. And if I don't go in that way, I don't think I will forgive myself. Anyway, okay. My first item is on the free nation. When Singapore became free, immediately housing came into the picture. We have 1 million people, 1.5 million people, and we were trying to house them improperly and so on. So immediately public housing became an important thing. Now this is something, a story that we must be told. credit to the PAP government. In fact, Singapore was all covered by squatters and gangster-based type of places, and they are the opposition. The political opposition wasn't much, but these are the real opposition. You want to move anything, they will come in with their balangs and so on. Anyway, there was one issue called Bukit Ho Swee, which was burned down, and that's one opportunity the PAP took over and cleared the land, and there was nearly an uprising. However, we overcame that. Then came Toa Payoh, a new town. That new town is another story to say. In the beginning, the British designer architect in Singapore couldn't understand Singapore's needs, and they were doing 4-story building for Toa Payoh New Town, which is supposed to be done for 150,000 population. So the government very quickly shut the plan off and demanded that at least 9-story building to house the kind of people that will come forward and the kind of educated people that will come forward. This is also earlier days. We were all primary school graduates only. The PAP government were thinking about university graduates to meet the need of the new world. Now that is important to see the larger picture to their credit. Now next thing. So one of the major issue is, we need new talent. Now new talent people need a lot of new things. You cannot ask them to go and live in HDB and the old things and this and that. So therefore, there were plans to really talk about a new type of environment that can support a new population. And this is taking architecture beyond building, taking architecture beyond just calculations. We are really talking about social, community, and national issues. Now, this is where the Europeans don't understand. They had their revolution in their day, and they were able to conquer the world and make colonies out of so many places, so many countries. After the Second World War, a new world emerged. Now, this new world needs new type of places. Now, these places mean new towns. These places mean new cities. These places means new airport, new seaport, new CBD, and Singapore adopted them all, and we succeeded tremendously. Now, that is a kind of, I think, verbal, there's a kind of energy and there's a kind of vision. We should be engaging ourselves for the next phase. And that's my third phase issue coming up. Okay, before I go to the third phase, I was given the opportunity to build the first multi-story high-rise residential building called Pearl Bank. Oh my God. Yeah, there's a building you see now on the board. We stayed there so long. This is the first 40-story building, and then now it is a tender building. Now what happened is I would like to show you the plan. The plan came out to be like this. Now, what was I trying to do as a young architect? I was, of course, involved in these social issues as a service. Growing up in Chinatown, yes, I grew up in Chinatown. So I understand a lot of difficulties about living in crowded places, about shop houses and all that growing up there. So we are talking about buildings. And then, of course, the examples at that time were from Hong Kong. And the Hong Kong was building multi-story high-rise already, and they're all bunched together. And if you bunch 5, 6 buildings together like that, you'll be blocking each other. So that is why I took a different step. Coming back to this now. I analyzed the numbers and it came out that we need to do 4 blocks on a small site. The site is so small that if you do 4 blocks, you'll be blocking each other. You don't have spacing, even building. So no, I joined it up. These 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, actually 4 blocks, but actually it's 8 units per, and 2 units per floor will be, 8. So end up, I joined them into 1 block, and with a curvature. Now, this device has got a lot of goodness. First thing is, look at my corridor. My corridor is so slim and small. And normal HDB corridor would be so wide and would have taken about 15% of the floor area. I were able to do it in 6%. And then when I did a split level system, I could only use up 3% for the GFA. And you know, planning control GFA and all that. And the developer was very happy that I did not raise his GFA, which normally people do. So anyway, this was a breakthrough. And I think because of the innovative things, I got 16 new things inside this design, 16 new breakthroughs for high-rise building. And that is why we won the competition in the URA assessment from the US assessment team. Although the tender price was on the lower range, you know, the high price came from Hong Kong investors. They do the normal thing, and clever enough, URA resisted the money and gave us architectural credit. So that's one thing to go on. Apart from the split level and all that, which we will talk. I mean, we don't have much time, so it's too long. Then the next breakthrough thing that came to me, lucky enough, because we did Penang successfully. We were awarded a Penang Valley site out on the outskirts. Penang is in the center of the city. This one is the outskirts. Why? Because the outskirts, we were trying to convince the terrace house owners that, hey, no need to go to your terrace house. We have a new type called condominium, which will give you more good things as a living place, as a housing area for the middle income people. And that came out with this Penang Valley typology. It's something very, very revolutionary, because the government uses this design to convince you don't need to live in terrace houses, because terrace houses, you only have a small handkerchief garden in front of you. But in a new formation, you have huge spacious gardens and facilities and services and all kinds of things that will make the place a wonderful place to live in. Now, this is the section of the building. I devised a split level for the slab block, and then of course there's a step unit, which is also mainly like a terrace house with a not a small garden, but a very private garden. And your car park, you still park outside, no need to block up your view and so on. So this again won some support, and after initial hesitation, it was sold out very quickly. Next. I got no time. Then let's go. Okay, that was a preliminary. Now I come to the real stage. When Singapore wanted to replan the whole town, replan the whole city. Now we have in 1963, a master plan done by a UN advisor who gave us a very simple plan. Then later in 71, we developed into a land use plan. That plan also became the basic structure. You know, it's a very small island. Anyway, I don't want to go too much on this one. But the urban planning and architecture were the twin driver in Singapore's development. And this is something that I like to stress. The people was actually not considered at that time, because most of our population were actually non-educated. My parents, for instance, were all from China and all that. They wouldn't know much about an educated population, you know, in a modern sense, you see. But Singapore had a vision for a modern city with modern population. And that's why their planning was supposed to be hinged on that one. Finally, we have a land use planning for Singapore, and it has stuck here for a long time. This is probably about 1980 or so. Now look at the color scheme there. The small orange, the orange color represent residential zoning for residential use. And you can see that it occupies less than half the island. Imagine you want to put in 4 million people, 5 million people in that kind of cramped space. And that's another coming up challenge. And at the moment we are struggling how to increase it to 6 million, how to increase to 7 million, because the future economy demand that kind of numbers to be satisfied. Of course, it's very complicated issues now because of foreign investors, foreign population, all sorts of things, and a very highly educated population in Singapore now. The policy was to make Singapore a world-class city, and that means that people must be very well educated, and these are the issues that planners and architects must satisfy. It's no more just property selling. It's no more just, buy and sell a bit of real estate. I think that is gone. It's phase 1, phase 2. The phase 3 will be the future of actually cities really for the man of quality, in the inverted commas. So this, the land use plan that is still under use, is still in use. Of course, now, in Singapore, we are really very clever already. We have our seaport, we have our airport, world-renowned. The seaport, I think, the second or third most busy airport in the world. Then the airport is also equally busy. And what I'm trying to stress here is this: the new city for the future must acquire new factors or new skills and new standards to meet, before which we will not survive. Now the issue here comes the third phase duty. The second phase has created 27 new towns. And on paper, there will be 2 more coming around and so on, which means they're talking about 30 new towns in Singapore for population, for public housing population of 5-6 million, which means that roughly about 200,000 per new town, a lot of people. And yet we have a policy, no more cars. 2 small islands cannot allow cars. So the car population was suppressed, cut down to what? To all kinds of taxes, to all kinds of difficulties to make. And yet people rich enough to buy, they don't care, they just pay. And the car populations keep on going up. Yet every day there are 3 million people using our MRT. 3 million people, of course, maybe 1/3 of them are workers, foreign workers and maids and all that. But the actual population still in the bulk is a lot. Then the next factor we have to consider for the future is the population aging. Population is aging. In the beginning, most of us passed off about 60 years old. Now we are talking about 80 years old, 90 years old. Around here, we are examples of very healthy people. So it's just coming that the population will be bigger and bigger, longer and longer. And in the middle of this scale, is 50% of the population. And that's a lot of population living in HDB. Of course, there is a new class of housing, which is called condominium. And there's the third class, of course, landed property. That's another. So we have these 3 groupings of housing solutions to support the population. And these guys are clever guys. The older generation, of course, will all pass off, but the new generation in the middle part, they're all highly educated, and most of them are university grads, looking for jobs, wanting this, wanting that. And of course, the government has been quite clever in giving them free housing support. I mean, it is one country that's able to supply public housing in the manner Singapore is doing. And that, of course, is also satisfying and also bringing up certain challenges. However, back to the matter of planning, back to the matter of a new type of a city, we have now realized, or I personally realized, that it is not enough just to give people to stay upstairs, 9-story, 30-story, 40-story. You've got to give this population a new kind of space and place on the ground. Of course, we have been very respectful of architecture as a country, and under the influence of what we have conserved a lot of good things. And in fact, conservation is also one of our pillar of urban objective. And we have conserved Chinatown, we have conserved Little India, we have conserved Kampong Glam, which is supposed to be a Malay kampong. And these places are now, although conserved, they are very busy, economically busy. So we're experimenting that. In fact, that's my quarrel with the present management. Why are you not learning from these places? These places are bustling with population, busy business. And why you worry about high rise and all that all the time? So anyway, so these are the things that we are going on. Then of course, another big thing is the main park and the reserves of our land. We got no land, but we still want to keep all the trees and all the lands. Look at the green parks that we have zoned to keep. Well, then come to Central Park. I don't need to describe anymore. Everybody understands Singapore's casino and all that. Lee Kuan Yew was so angry in the beginning, but being a very clever politician, when he was asked after he had stepped down, Mr. Lee, why do you allow casino in Singapore? He was asked in one of the big sessions. He cleverly said, I think I have stepped down already, Somebody else make the decision. Poor Lee Seng Loo got to take all the rap. But this is the kind of progress, the kind of change of thinking, the kind of thing of philosophy. Okay, stage 2. My God, I'm still only at stage 2. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes. Now I show here the picture of the MRT. MRT lines in Singapore, 50 stations. And I was told somewhere in this trip that Penang is yet to start any MRT for some reasons. Yeah. Okay, there's no reason. Yeah. Maybe there are other reasons, a good reason not to. But we have to rely on MRT because we had this idea said, no more cars. We make the car so expensive, nobody can afford the car. Blah, 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 blah. And we are trying to make the stations very, very comfortable. Unfortunately, as usual, nothing is perfect. And I have some more quarrel. Apart from a very nice underground, they go and spoil it with LRT hanging in the air. In some of the new town, they spend millions build this LRT and make old lady walking up stairs to go to the stop in the air. So these are issues which must be corrected. So going forward, there are still a lot of physical infrastructural issues to be resolved before we can come down to really make the man happy on the ground. Okay, LRT here, next one. Now, what is it? Yeah, roads. Singapore is very famous for roads. Actually, just now, in your cities, I have not gone to a highway. Where are your highways? Where are you hiding your highways? I don't know. But we have so much highways that in fact, we are living in highways in Singapore. Okay. Then comes, what is it? Then, of course, comes the China experience. You see, once you have money in the new economy of the world, you can really spoil yourself and you can spoil your city. This is what's happening in China. In the beginning, they just copied Singapore's kind of model, but they overdo things. They do things in 20, 30 years. They overcame every constraint, and now they end up with so many ghost towns. Now, these ghost towns are built with nobody stay there. Nobody can stay there because it's all wrong. Everything, all the planning went wrong, including your forest city in Johor Bahru. I mean, it's also a result of that wave of energy coming through to spoil our city, to spoil our urban system. Yet the world for the next phase must really contend or must confront these issues and learn how to live and control it. Okay, ghost towns. We don't like ghost town. Then I would like to mention something about how China suddenly grew so much. You know, in 1978 or 79, they sent a delegation, or in 70, sent a delegation to Singapore, consulted our deputy prime minister, Kheng, and Goh Keng Swee, of course, is not an architect, not a planner. He just didn't give any reply. So these people are so unhappy, and then came to consult the private sector. And I happened to be one of the few architects he consulted, and we were brought into China to help them, and we introduced condos into them. And because of that, Shenzhen became one of the richest cities in China. And this is how I'm trying to say real estate can really boom the place or drive the place underground. Be very, very careful. And hence, I want to stress this point that although I personally have benefited a lot of whatever good things in this development, but in the long run, they know the danger is there. So difficult to make it sustainable. The word is sustainable. Okay, this is the ghost towns picture. So many ghost towns throughout China, very dangerous. Of course, I was told that the Penang is very cautious. And well, fine, that's good. We have to plan things properly. What did I say here? Cabinet here, anyway, doesn't matter. The young, the elderly and all that is coming now. We have the young new population. Actually, although people are not getting married too early nowadays in Singapore, they don't want children. If they want one or two only. They are scared of the cost of raising a family. So that's another challenge. And most of them are talking about problem. Then the elderly are complaining. The elderly say, hey, I have no more job. I don't have this, I don't have that. Can government do something? So a lot of social issues coming into the picture. Next game, okay, now I'm advocating the proposal of super connectors. Now these super connectors for our new town must be seriously considered. And we have yet to, of course, write to the government seriously, in a serious manner, to suggest to them that they have to connect people on the ground.
You're back in Singapore, are you, Cheng Siong? You're now back in Singapore. Are you back in Singapore? You're in Shenzhen.
Why?
Are you back in Singapore on this proposition?
Yeah.
Okay.
I presented this in WAF, the World Trade Festival, but of course I've not written yet to the government. I'm going to do that very soon. So I have studied three new towns that can be done. One is Toa Payoh, the one is Ang Mo Kio, and then the third one is Bukit Panjang. I can find so many spaces and places with which we could bring back the man on his legs and on his foot to enjoy the ground, and to go to station, from one station to another, or from his apartment come down and travel through a proper environment, befitting of a healthy community, of a prosperous community. So these are factors which are being studied. I think they are listening. In fact, right now we are talking about spaces for old people already. So it is emerging. So you see, it doesn't stop. Architecture doesn't stop anywhere. It's a continuous process. Now, okay, I come to my last bit, I think. I'm now talking about ASEAN, hopeful. Singapore now 6 million, 6 million. Hopefully, we are planning to go to 8 million. At 2 million people is a lot, with that land use. Then I take a look at ASEAN. ASEAN is like Europe. ASEAN got so many countries. Europe also got so many countries. Now, Europe prospered through going to war, through going to colonize Asia and Africa. Now they gave up, of course. That was a wrong idea. So now the Asians have to be on their own, and ASEAN should be on their own. And ASEAN needs to be advised, honestly. I would dare to say that they couldn't understand. Don't say couldn't understand. They are messed up with too much property development, too much real estate, and easy way out kind kind of solution, and it's going to be at the cost of our urbanization and urban city in Asia. Now, if Asia fail to urbanize successfully, it could be a big problem. Anyway, I don't think I want to talk as though I know what's going on exactly. No, I'm learning everything. Now, this place is where? Malaysia, Penang. Penang. So I think Penang, I said no MRT. How come? I said no MRT. How come? Because the population of 2.0 million people, it's quite a lot of people already, you know. But I was explaining the certain habit of using the car. Everybody likes to drive around this and that. So this will continue for a while until all sorts of things happen and blah, blah, blah. And I do not know much to be able to do something. But I this trip I stayed in the Datuk's Bellevue. Wow, Penang is so beautiful at sunset and at sunrise. So these are the beautiful things we should all fight for to keep. Other cities, Philippines, Manila, you see the way their cities happening, it's not good enough for the future, for the next generation of people. Look at this one, Indonesia, Jakarta also. Sorry. But what I'm trying to say is that when you look into this, you understand the areas that one can actually get involved in. Thailand also, look at Bangkok. So our ASEAN cities need a lot of things to prime it up, chew it up. And I think, but the people must come in. And then the architects and planners must come in. I hope so. So now, you see ASEAN, you see ASEAN is so big. Now I've got this picture on the right. All the pictures is on the right. It's terrible. That one, this is it? How to point? Is it pointing here? This one. Is it the one with on top? I said this one. This is the Hong Kong thing, you know. This Hong Kong thing, they in this kind of thing, they live in this kind of thing, and the Hong Kong people call it what they are called coffin apartment. They're living in coffins. You know. Some of the poorer population. Come on, man, this is 21st century? 21st century with this kind of city is terrible.
You've gone beyond ASEAN. You've gone beyond ASEAN, of course.
Okay, of course, I'm talking about ASEAN. Then, no, I'm taking example. I'm taking of, say, Philippines now. Okay, next one is Philippines, sorry. Oh, no, thank you so fast. No, thank you so fast. Okay, let me finish. Now, the one picture at this corner is about young people had no job and no place to stay. And they go and spend their time in the dirty canal, and they call it Happy Land. How can in the 21st century in an ASEAN country with vibrant possibilities, such a huge economy going on, you have people living like that? So there's a lot of urban failure, urban and planning failure in our ASEAN. So even Singapore is learning how to do it better. But Singapore is going very high standard, and I think we can set a lot of good example. I think I'm finishing.
Thank you. You can all see that we have a very passionate person here who wants to solve not only Singapore and China, but also ASEAN. Anyway, I can see Kheng Soon is really itching to get in the act because you're going to hear a completely different alternative.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Well, Kheng Soon, over to you.
Yeah. As I told you, I was very unsure what I'm going to say today, and I only made up my mind the last few minutes. Although I have a 8-minute video film which they will show, but before we go into that, I would have to give a bit of background. The first thing is that I think we all agree that architecture has got a lot to do with human civilization, human life, and social well-being and all those things, right? However, when we think about those things, we have to be clear, what are we really talking about? Because, let me put it this way, that there's track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4, okay? Track 1 are the policy makers, and they have to make strategic, long-term and short-term plans. And they are also driven by economic and other considerations, social, political considerations. Now, track 2 is where I belong, which is people like demented philosophers, okay, who are trying to influence track 1, okay. One good example of a frustrated philosopher is Confucius. And he tried very hard to educate the ruling classes. So he traveled from one place to another. But what he did succeed in the end was that he brought along with him a whole bunch of students who learned from him. And when he passed away, they put together all his thoughts and writings, and Confucius' ideas then became the core ideas of China. Okay? So here I want to pay a tribute to this man here, right? He's a kind of Confucius. He also confused us a lot. Yeah, so I was his student. I first met him when 63 years ago. I had to do some arithmetic. 63 years ago, so I was his student. But forever I'm his student. Yeah, but at this morning's breakfast, I subtly told him that myself I used to teach. I was a professor in the architecture school in Singapore, and I also said in response to him that I also learn a lot from my students. Okay.
Meaning that I have to learn from you still.
He got it. But you guys didn't get it. It's still okay. Yeah. Okay, now the reason why I want to show you this film, and the background to it is this. I'm very concerned about the future of Singapore and the future of the region, okay? But I think that Singapore has a tremendous role to play in uplifting the entire region, all right? I had a meeting with a very senior person in Temasek Holdings, the biggest government financial agency, right? I cannot name the person. The discussion I had with that person was, how can I raise $1 trillion in order to finance what I call the eco-regional development of the whole region, all right? And this person said to me, there's no problem. With Singapore's AAA financial status, right, we can attract any amount of funding. There is 17 million US dollars. There are 17 million US dollars in idle fund. They're not doing anything. They are put in offshore accounts like Bahamas and Cyprus and other places, and they are paying these banks to keep their money safe and to keep their identity secret, okay? And they are paying them 0.5%. If we offer them 1%, the money will come to us, okay? So the question is not a question of availability of money. The question which this senior person then threw back at me is this: do we have the people who are capable of using this money? All right? And to which I had to reply, I cannot see anyone. In other words, the reality of Singapore, unlike what he has glowingly told you, is that after Singapore left Malaysia, I was always trying to find, I did a research on this. Why did Lee Kuan Yew cry? All right? He cried because he knew that as long as Singapore remained in Malaysia, he would not be under total servitude to the international order. Because together with Malaysia, there would be enough resources and human resources, material resources, and all these resources in which he can then carve out certain wriggle room, you know. Otherwise, he will be under total pressure by the West, okay? That's why he cried. And he cried, and he went to a bungalow in Changi, and he sulked there for 1 month, okay? Interestingly, during that 1 month, your brother visited him, okay? And actually, they had a very interesting conversation, which I am told by some people who know what that conversation was, but I won't tell you. Yeah. Okay. So what Lee Kuan Yew then did was he knew that he had no hinterland. Therefore, he coined the phrase using Mr. Rajaratnam, who was Singapore's preeminent wordsmith. He knew how to spin words, right? So he coined the term, Singapore has to be a global city. In other words, the world becomes our hinterland, not just Malaysia. So, global city. But in reality, what that means is that Singapore has to be a servant of the international order, which is the Anglo-American order, okay? So he was able to attract a lot of investment, foreign direct investment and so on. So we built the factories and we create the jobs and the housing and the roads and the MRT, blah, 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 okay? But in order to attract these people in, you have to discipline the society. No strikes are allowed, no dissident, newspapers, TV must be all controlled. In other words, you must domesticate the entire population. This is the reason why the answer to the question which Temasek said to me, do you have people to use that $1 trillion properly? The answer is that no, because people in Singapore have become so damn weak. Not because they are uneducated, they are highly educated, but they got no balls. Okay?
They're women, it's okay. They're women. They're women anyway.
Hey,
After all, who's in charge of Temasek?
some of our women have balls, man. Anyway, so the problem was therefore, how do you liberate the Singapore mind? Because money is not a problem. Liberation of the mind is the number one, right? How do you use urban planning? How do you use architecture? How do you use economy? How do you use education in order to develop a whole new generation of entrepreneurs? This is the problem. So turn on the 8-minute film.
How many minutes? How many minutes, Kheng? How long is the film?
8 minutes.
How long?
8 minutes.
Only 8 minutes. Thank goodness. Okay.
Singapore's future has to be an enterprise city by turning every university, polytechnic, and ITE campus into integrated enterprise zones, starting with NTU campus. Crisis demands radical action. That is what the Lee Kuan Yew generation did. The next generations elaborated on this, systematized the admin system, defined KPIs, resulting in specialized silos, which define the current reality. But we are in a new crisis. A new reality has to be forged. Macroeconomist Larry Summers calls this new reality a global crisis, secular stagnation. We need integrated action plans to deal with this.
The creation of enterprise campuses has to do this by integrating all the strengths this country has together to foment a robust regional economy to survive the current supply chain shocks upon which we depend entirely. All our universities, polytechnics, and ITE campuses must therefore become enterprise hubs. We need MOE, MND, and MOF to drive this change. This proposal is made by a pioneer group of Singapore-trained architects, all in their 80s, who now want to contribute to Singapore's new future in answer to URA's call for master plan ideas. Still full of the pioneering spirit, we are motivated to contribute to a better future for our children and grandchildren, not for income, but for the necessary outcome. Why not build upon the many existing efforts in Singapore's startup ecosystems, one might ask? In addition to the many existing startup efforts, the combined efforts starting with the NTU Enterprise Campus will be necessary to signal a new integrated nation-building direction. Campus land costs must remain zero. This is for professors, startups, business, finance, and students working together to make the future. What will an enterprise campus consist of? The enterprise campus will form a contiguous ecosystem. Proximity is not good enough. Contiguity is necessary to create the close human encounters that generate cross-disciplinary ideas. Jane Jacobs in her book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, emphasized spatial contiguity as against fragmented planning. MIT campus, Harvard Square, and Berkeley Town Square are good examples of creative contiguity which individualized zones lack. Contiguity is everything. There has to be 100% student living campus, a totally mixed development to live, learn, work, play, and innovate in. The hope for startups and their young families must be supplemented by full facilities, kindergartens, schools, clinics, supermarkets, F&B, culture, and recreational facilities. All are necessary in the enterprise campus, but at low cost rent. This is the NTU campus as an enterprise campus, conceived as an ecosystem linked together by a central nervous system. We need to double the campus population to 80,000 through an addition of 40,000 new people at 30 meters square per person, therefore a total of 1.2 million square meters of new floor space, all linked to the existing buildings and overcoming the difficult terrain through a web of linear blocks and 4 tall towers. Despite massive intervention, all existing iconic buildings are preserved. Using the level rooftops shaded by photovoltaic cells, all the existing laneways above the elongated buildings serve as meeting places for chance encounters at F&B outlets, shops, clubs, barbers, clinics, etc. This is what the link blocks look like. Flat top, it has many levels of accommodation below it as terrain allows. Link bridges across existing roads. The hotel spanning the existing lake is essential as an investor visitor center. Important international business leaders and local business leaders will meet together to form new ideas and investments generating here. People like Jack Ma, Elon Musk, Lee Kai-fu, startups in Japan, and Temasek, our homegrown enterprise investors. The new link blocks form the backdrop of the heritage structures and buildings and connects the student service center to the entire campus. The linear blocks extend to the sports complex and beyond to JTC CleanTech Park, thereby linking it via the rooftop linkways to the NTU campus proper. The northern perimeter of the campus, adjacent to the MINDEF forested area, accommodates even more accommodation for more dormitories, offices, research studios, and social amenities. Starting with NTU campus, Enterprise Singapore and NTU's aim of becoming a sustainability technology center will energize the conversion of all other campuses in Singapore and turn the whole island into enterprise city altogether in the next decades. These ideas by the Poly Pioneer architects will hopefully contribute in combination with all the many startup initiatives, including URA's drive towards a new master plan for this little red dot, to turn Singapore into the eco-regional green economy. This has to be the future of Singapore. Starting with Singapore's immediate region of 45 million has to be the focus for the creation of a mutual benefit eco-regional economy. This takes the form of many small charter cities served by many Singapore-built vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. This is all necessary to make it possible for e-commerce, tourism, and for all kinds of new developments, including space technology, bamboo to replace timber, clean hydrogen extraction from fossil fuel. In the extraction of hydrogen from hydrocarbon, the synthetic carbon that is extracted is very valuable for replacement of all the silicon-based technologies that exist today. Singapore's economy depends on the global economy. Larry Summers calls it secular stagnation. This is the crisis that we must face. Crisis has always challenged Singapore's existence. Our leaders dared, and so we succeeded in the past. We must now dare to succeed in the future.
So, the timetable for this proposal, I had a special meeting with the minister, and it's agreeable, but I'm not sure whether they have the will and the daring to carry it out. Okay. There are also very deep concerns about corruption in the region, and how can we set up mutual benefit arrangements once we have the human resources, once we have the revamped human resources. Why I concentrate on the development of the university and tertiary education sector to turn them into enterprise campuses is this. If you were to change the entire education system, it will take you 36 years, okay? But if you change the educational culture in which you not only learn from books, you also learn experientially. You want to have businesses located in your learning environment so that you have the talented students co-opted into those enterprises. You also want to be able to work with the very talented professors. Let me give you one example. NTU itself has produced a huge number of patents. Yeah, and let's just give you one. There is a professor called Professor Chan Siong, who is a good friend of mine, who has been able to extract, he has several patents, to extract hydrogen from hydrocarbon. Singapore is an oil processing center, all right? Singapore is an oil processing center. And his idea is to extract the hydrogen from petrochemical fossil fuel. What that does is that it has two major advantages. Number one, the petrochemical industry will become your ally and not your enemy. Number one, because you are using their resources to turn into renewable resources. Number two, the carbon that you extract, the synthetic carbon that you extract, has a huge potential for the replacement of silicon chips, okay? Now, the patents that he created, right, this is the reality, which underscores the point which the Temasek senior manager told me. do we have the people capable of using the new inventions and the new knowledge, right? All the patents, most of the patents made in Singapore, right, developed in Singapore, have been sold to China and Switzerland for dirt cheap. Because there are no investors in Singapore who have the guts and the daring to implement the projects. Now, one good news. Last year, $550 million, a startup fund, was invested by Temasek into the petrochemical island in Jurong Island. And they are now experimenting in converting hydrocarbon, which is because that's the oil base there, into hydrogen, which will be fed directly into the power station on the west coast of Singapore, right? In other words, we will be able to we will be able to get rid of fossil fuel. All our power stations are right now run on natural gas piped in from Natuna, from the Indonesian islands. Once we can do that, eventually the whole of the Singapore energy system will be run on hydrogen. And we are moving into by 2030, we are going to have all our vehicles will be, buses and cars will be run on electric, okay? And this is also, there's a coordination going on between Singapore and Malaysia, right? And Malaysia has announced that they're moving rapidly into electric vehicles. So this will be a very major regional development, right? Now, the other proposal which I developed was the idea of the vertical takeoff aircraft. Okay, right? I have experience in aeronautics. I work with two engineers, one in Germany and the other in Australia. We built the ground effect vehicle, which is now based in Malacca. Okay, and I sold the entire investment. I had investment in it. I sold it to the new company. Now, because I understand aeronautics, right, I have developed the idea of vertical takeoff. What's the importance of vertical takeoff? It means that you do not need to build airports for local transportation, right? And you can take off from any school field like this outside here, right? And you can, for example, Singapore to Batam, 10 minutes. Singapore to Batu Pahat, 10 minutes, okay? Which means that you are running a air travel vehicle service, right, at 1,000 feet or 300 meters above ground level, in which you are not interfering with the jet travel at all. Now, all this vertical takeoff means that e-commerce between big cities, medium-sized cities, and small villages can be facilitated easily. In other words, the whole economy of the region can be accelerated into a new form of thing, because right now the urban economy is completely dominated by big companies. Okay, so in fact, right now I'm working with a group of people in South Johor. Right, they are actually the Felda cooperative people, right, and we are developing products in which we will then, these are kampong products which will be sold in Singapore, right? So this is the initial model. Once this model works, we're going to multiply it across the 60, sorry, I can't remember the number, but there are tens of Felda townships which are dying idle, the whole of the Malaysia. So these are the kind of eco-regional economies, right, at all levels, at all scales, right, including village development, rural urbanization, and so on. So this is it's a whole new thing, but we need the right people, and but we have the money. Okay, so this is the issue. How can? Okay, I just want to end by saying that architects must no longer just be concerned about the fucking little buildings they are doing. Think bigger.
Over to, I think Xiaowun has, do you want to interpolate with anything?
No.
We actually have about half an hour.
You can have.
I think we have half an hour, and I think we're going to allow for some questions from the floor. They've really taken you into the stratosphere, with the vertical rising business and all that kind of thing. And I hope you're recording this event, because we can actually sell it to MediaCorp in Singapore.
Okay.
Because
How much?
when they were talking, I'm not sure whether they were allowed to show this in Singapore. But Penang has given them the space to really share their passions and so on. And certainly it should be inspiring. And the last words from Kheng Soon, you're not just concerned about drawing pretty pictures and doing simple buildings. Now let's get to the real issue of what are the critical issues. You have to look at the past and the future. You have to be concerned about the future and learn from the past. Not just celebrating the nice little things that are done, but also look at the bad things that's happening. I want to pick up on Kheng Soon's number one area where he talked that he's in the second group of alternative profits, because somehow or other he has to still get to the decision makers who are the political masters of Singapore. The real problem in any governance is who are advising those masters. It's not only the geniuses who win political elections, who are advising them. Now we come back to a place like Malaysia and Penang. What is happening in planning? Who are advising the decision makers? Now actually I have to mention Mahui, who's here, who's actually a member of the Traffic Master Plan Committee. But, somehow or other, Siong was suggesting that we should talk about MRTs and so on. The situation is really very different between Penang and Singapore. Today, frankly, people like Len come to Singapore because we're so cheap here. The food is so cheap to them. So Singapore is like a kind of, Penang is like an escape to those Singapore people who somehow cannot eat as well as in Penang, so they come here. But the solution for Penang has to be very, very different. And important to have passionate people like them, but looking at the realism of our situation here. So I hope that you're inspired by their passion. They have got very thick skulls, they're hitting the head against brick walls in Singapore, so they can ventilate it. But you must have that conviction to come up with ideas. A lot of them are very exciting, but the luck of the draw is actually who listens to them. Anyway, you're recording everything, but are you going to edit it and censor a few things?
I don't usually
censor my F word, okay?
I'll blur it, okay, but I don't usually censor anything.
I have to comment, however, on his slightly simplistic assumption that Temasek knows what he's doing, because we know the Temasek investment in Bitcoin in Silicon Valley, which has gone dud. So certainly there's a lot behind the scenes. So let's start in the more simple way of taking this as a session to inspire response from the audience. So I think we are open to a few questions. Anybody like to provoke and ask the speakers here a question?
Anyone? Anyone? Otherwise, me holding the mic might be the one asking.
Yeah.
I would like to ask.
Any member of a political party here?
Cheng. No. No. They are all so experienced, so practicing in architecture so much longer than I was born. But this is an opportunity to learn, to ask, to clarify. If there isn't, then I do.
I will take this opportunity to invite my good friend, Professor Zaki, who's the head of architecture from UPN, and his colleague, Fatima. So Zaki, thanks for coming. And please tell us about the traffic condition on the road.
First of all, sorry, Datuk, I apologize. I promised to be here right on the dot at 3 p.m., but I underestimated the traffic for Christmas Eve punya travel. So, and today, thank you. I missed a big chunk of the discussion. I was hoping to hear, but I heard that they will be recording this. So, okay, yeah. I am a bit pessimistic about renewable energy, and Mr. Kheng Soon was talking about renewable energy, and if Singapore can do that first, then we can, I think we have a ground to take off here as well.
Yeah, I think my brother was the Senior Minister of State for Education, all right? He passed away already. He told me something which was very eye-opening for me. Even as a person in charge of education, he told me to change the mindset of the Ministry of Education is like pulling teeth. Okay? It is very difficult because they are able to quote 1,000 years of educational history and theory, right? And can out-talk you anytime. Okay? So this is the problem, you see. That is why I'm not optimistic that you can change the education system in the school system. But you have a chance to change the education system in the tertiary education level. Why? And how? The how comes, the how will answer the question. Most higher education systems are budget constrained. They also have two types of academics, right? 90% of the academics are dummies, okay? They're
So when you
stupid.
say dummies, right?
They're
Dummies.
stupid. There are
That's
10% who are brilliant, but they are being suppressed. Now, if you can create a situation in which the brilliant ones can monetize their talent, they will become the leaders of the whole lot. Then the rest will follow. Okay? So this is the trick. That's why the enterprise campus is very crucial, because it means that I learned this from a venture capitalist who developed in the early days Silicon Valley. Okay? What they did was they had a club within the Silicon Valley area, right? And every month they would meet there for lunch. And then they would invite from the surrounding, the big university there was, of course, Stanford University. They would then invite the brilliant students who have some brilliant ideas to present their ideas so that the venture capitalists who like the idea may pick it up. And the venture capitalists are competing with each other, no? Who can pick up more successful projects than others. So they were able to pick up all the bright guys. You see, that's how Silicon Valley started. The second lesson from the Silicon Valley experience is that you must have a lot of very good coffee houses and restaurants within the campus, within the campus area, because that's where you meet and talk and exchange ideas. That is why in the film I talk about the central nervous system, right? All our campuses are badly designed by stupid architect planners, okay? Who think that the best way to design a learning environment is to design it like an efficient mechanism, like a watch, so that the parts do not interfere with each other. You must design the parts so that they interfere with each other.
May I interfere?
Yeah.
Of course, Silicon Valley succeeds because it's taken over by Indians anyway.
No, that's a different problem.
Right? No, the whole thing is changing very fast.
I'm quoting the lessons that we can learn from Silicon Valley in its startup moment, because that's where we are at. We must learn from that moment. But because it was taken over by bureaucrats in the later phase, we also must learn from that and prevent that from happening. Okay?
Soon I think people heard you, and I was
What?
people heard you and understood your passion, right? Actually, Professor Zaki has been very concerned about the decline of standards in academia. And you are a very original kind of thinker, but right down today, there's a news about all the mess in the universities in USA. The plagiarism going on in all those universities. But the best in history
It's
is what
also
you're referring to.
happening in NUS, it's happening in
Correct.
NTU, it's
Right.
happening everywhere,
Right.
okay?
Yes.
because academia is now a kind of, first of all, the academics are in different silos. They're not talking to each other. That's number one problem. Number two, right? It is a fight for survival, right? Because they are competing with each other in order to retain their jobs. So how do you retain your jobs, right? By passing your students. That's
Okay,
nonsense.
I think this is understood, and I'm sure.
When he was head of the department, we started with 35 students. We ended up with 5. And his philosophy was, get rid of those idiots.
Well, some survived. But
I'm
anyway,
pretty
we
sure
have-
if you were to do that today, he'll have to write like maybe 10.
Exactly the problem. So in other words, today you must keep the idiots.
Oops. Oops.
unfortunately, part of the craft of politics is to help the idiots.
Well, that's the thing. So you have to recognize the fact, you see, that I mean we have to learn something else from Harvard, right? What's his name now? I can't remember. That there are multiple intelligences. There are some people who are very good in certain things, but you must not. So in other words, how do you turn idiots into talent? But you got to find the right kind of stimulus, the right kind of opportunities for different talents, right? So the concept of the enterprise campus is that you not only have the super bright abstract academic types who get their A's, you also get the types who know how to develop, say, computer games, right? Or another type that knows how to do dress design or whatever. In other words, the whole campus culture has to be a miniature of the real world.
Yeah, Kheng is called biodiversity.
There are questions here. There are questions.
Yeah, please.
Chop, chop.
No, use the mic, please.
Chop, chop.
Please,
Chop.
hold on.
Yeah.
Use the mic
Gardner, yes.
and tell us who you are, although I know who you are.
Yeah.
Please.
But there was a question here.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, give it.
there's a question here.
And then the other one to follow. Identify yourself.
I'm Kamal Bidin from KL. In fact, this is the first time I'm here in Penang Institute. It's a wonderful session that we have today. And I just would like to say that today's talk is great, it's wonderful and eye-opener. But of course, on my part, I normally do architecture, particularly just building. For all of us here, I mean, for the speakers, let's say we got all the three that have been presented. I'm familiar with certain things which I do for my work. It's something to share. But of course, in the manner of how we present for what we have in the ideas, I'm sure some of us must have known to, let's say, the work of Christopher Alexander, the pattern language. And probably we also have known, let's say, the word of timeless ways for building. So what was presented is wonderful, is great. It's an eye-opener for me, and I feel very thrilled and very keen to, in fact, to look into what other ways that all these facts and ideas has been presented could be developed further in terms of the subject, in terms of the critical issues, architecture and planning. Because, for example, what presented in terms of facilities for the senior citizen, ideas for the new generations, new cities for and whatnot. And the things that we have seen today, the one that really bother us is the issue of Palestine. And when Israel developed well with the idea of start-up nation, the vision that they share was just a simple word, agricultural science. Through that vision, they developed further, not only to supply food for the people, against 56 other Arab nations who was depending on fossil fuel. And again, as mentioned just now, developing energy from hydrogen oxide and whatnot. These are the things that have been developed in Israel. And now we see that in terms of human values, we see that the Palestinian people have been victimized. So I'm not sure to what extent from these ideas of what have been presented that we should proceed further with the noble cause. And I'm so pleased that it was presented very well. Maybe we can go further. And it's true, the society must love our place. The idea of connecting the cities, facilities are very important. It's very good. Because if everything is done based on piecemeal, we can never succeed. And the idea of what being presented, that interconnecting of cities and facilities, this is something that we can look into further. And the reason why I say that the work of Christopher Alexander on pattern language, timeless ways of building is good format, because remember, Penang at one time was very popular when we used the word cat. Remember cat? They're very concerned about what being produced in the market in terms of food and whatnot. And again, together with the work of, I think, Dr. Anwar Faisal, Water Watch. I think that's a great book because it really opens up our mind when we look into the ideas of architecture and planning. The engineers are doing one thing, sir. The planners are doing one thing, the architects are designing another thing, the environmentalists are giving new ideas, but in the end, what we get, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right, highways is over the rivers. So again, I said, I just really not asking questions, but just trying to share ideas that maybe what's important now, we need vision in which everybody may be able to share with you or to share with us together and create a better future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we don't need a response straight away, but when we wind up, they can comment on the talks given. There's another.
Keng Soon, you mentioned about the trillions sitting and...
Please mention your august name.
Yeah, Datuk Sri calls me Double O in any case. My name is Sengan, by the way.
And he's the honorary French consul.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that there are trillions sitting doing nothing. Okay, it's a crime.
It's not a crime.
Yeah, hang on, that's not a dialogue. Just say what you want to say, then they will respond.
Now, how is it that someone like our PMX is unaware of that? Because we could definitely need some of that money.
Okay, any more contributions?
Can I respond to that?
No, hang on.
yet.
Just pick them all up. Huh?
There's one more over here.
Yep.
Oh,
Chong.
okay. My name is Chong. I'm actually currently working at the Penang Fuel Corporation. I'm just very impressed with the talk and also the energy level, despite the seniority that all of you are, 90 plus and 80 plus. I think some of the examples that you brought up about the contiguous things, you also see it in California, Stanford University's University Avenue, Embarcadero Road, where in the even in the 70s and 80s, actually students was gathering around. There's a cafe culture along where the professors are mostly live in the Palo Alto area, so which is around the Stanford University. So the one example, when talk about planning, one example I'll come to the questions actually. One example I thought was the Cyberjaya. When year 2000, a multi-super corridor was the idea was created. I was at the former Prime Minister Tun Mahathir did a presentation at Stanford University where I attended. Then I was very impressed. Actually came back, became a strong advocate of multimedia super corridor. However, I think it's a good concept, but good planning perhaps, but poor execution. Subsequently, one of the meetings that I had with the late Tan Sri Dr. Othman Yop Abdullah, who was the chairman of Multimedia Development Corporations, MDEC then, if you remember, some of you. He had a multimedia university, which is set up. The first batch of the academics came from University of Malaya, including the president was Professor Gaul Jasman. The dean of engineering school was from Penang, who is now the Tan Sri Professor Chong, probably some of you know, who later later went to a University of Tunak, Abdul Rahman, and he retired recently and then focused on the medical school. Then we had discussions about bringing populations in Cyberjaya, and yet the housing must remain low because you want to promote the startup culture. Let the entrepreneurship thrive. You got to bring young people into that community. So I emphasize that. You've got to remain, and yet the answer that was cheapest condo than the unit was about 300,000. That was 2001. And I say that won't work because this is not the Silicon Valley model then, right? So, and then, after that, the rest is history. So just kind of illustrate the example of, Malaysia, we do have good planning, but execution of it, I think there's just a little bit lacking. Cyberjaya today did not meet its promises, despite after 20 years. So now my question, with all the, oftentimes we compare Penang and Singapore. There's a lot of talks, why can't Penang learn from Singapore, do what Singapore does or Singapore did? So minus the politics, no political party bashing. So what are the fundamental 2 or 3 things that you think we ought to do to uplift Penang to the next level?
Thank you, Chuck. Mariam in front.
Thank you. Mariam from Shalam. Thank you for the wonderful talk. I'm not an architect, but it's a lot of learning here. Raymond began with minor things in architecture, expanded into Siong's bringing Singapore across to China, and of course, you've gone beyond suggesting and promoting connectivity within the region through the ideas that you've put forward. I'd just like to share, and I like actually, I began this morning mentioning to Datuk Seri that we should steer beyond, not beyond, we should steer away from politics, religion, and race, and that we should be safe within the forum. That was the idea. But I cannot resist bringing this up because in the ideas that you have put forward, these are the experiences that I've had working on the ground, because I was with the Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand Growth Triangle. And then the ideas that King Soon has actually put forward had actually been started. And then for your information, actually, in 1993, Tun Mahathir actually brought forth these ideas of connectivity within the region, the Indonesia, Malaysia Growth Triangle. And these were one of the, working towards ASEAN. ASEAN was there, but these were the groundwork because we were with the Joint Business Council, and then we worked towards bringing from the private sector, instead of the public sector, moving towards mobilizing and the economy. We actually worked on the private sector. But this is my concern, because you brought this up and then you're suggesting connectivity within the region. Through my experience, there were a lot of projects that were put forward by the private sector, because the meetings were held 3 times a year at the, the ministerial level, the governors meeting, we had a governors meeting, and then the upper level, it goes from basic to and finally the governor's level, the chief minister's level. And we had all these meetings with the support of the Asian Development Bank, the planning meetings of the Asian Development Bank. And then we had a lot of people moving towards promoting many projects, interconnectivity. But at the end of the day, and this was my experience, one example was the fact that Air Asia came up, because there were a lot of people before that proposing a lot of this. And it was actually quashed because the powers that be, you see, politics comes in again and bureaucracy. So, I mean, in all the ideas that you'd like to promote, I'm wondering, how can it be a reality? I mean, where's the political will or whatever? I mean, is there hope yet? I mean, I had experiences over the last, more than 20 years, and here you are promoting the same things. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. Mariam is a law lecturer, formerly in UiTM, and very experienced also in education. And she was involved in the Northern Corridor, the Corridor Consortium for Education. Does a person at the back wants to ask a question? Somebody at the back raise a hand. I was hoping to get Mahui, but he's escaped through the door somewhere. They're here.
Thank you. I'm Lee Kok Hua. I'm an architect. This question is from Mr. Tan Cheng Siong. Singapore uses the structure plan, color maps, land use pattern for your planning, say 3 or 4 decades ago. We in Malaysia did the same thing. But how come you could achieve your goals and for us, our color maps turn into slums? All right, that's question number 1. And question the other for the use of hydrogen, I think it's the thing. So for the next decade, probably hydrogen can be used in building. I understand in Singapore using as a cooling panels for building facade. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sorry, I can't hear that. Say that again, I can't hear.
The hydrogen gel as a cooling panel.
Hydrogen gel as a cooling panel.
In Singapore, hydrogen gel being used on the facade as a cooling tool. Okay. There's one more question.
But I was hoping Mahui would ask a question or make a contribution.
Dr. Lim, do you have a question?
He can make a contribution, express some views.
All right, come.
Good afternoon. Mr. Mahui, I guess I've been active with Penang Forum, which is a conglomeration of civil societies and NGOs that try to make Penang and society a better place to stay. And I did enjoy very presentations from the very specific architecture of Raymond to Mr. Tan, who's bigger vision, and then my old friend, Mr. Kheng Soo, who always has some great ideas. I can't help but complain that even though they are octogenarians, there's a full lot of air. It's unbelievable air and energy, and the ideas that they are putting forward is great. Actually, before I maybe make a point, I think Kheng Soo, a few years ago when I met you, you were very much into this idea of, I can't remember exactly, but rural urbanization or something like that. Urbanization. So I want to ask what connection you may have today, that idea with today's. But Dr. Seri asked me to say something which I'm not sure. I find it very difficult maybe to come to grips with these great ideas and how they can be implemented in Malaysia or Penang, because we just can't even get the basics correct. Our planning is not driven, as you said, advised by the second tier people, is it, the philosophers or professionals and all that. Our planning and the policymakers are driven basically by money. That's a big problem, I think. And I don't think it's a short of ideas. It's just the question is who controls, the policymakers. Mr. Tan mentioned, he said he came here, he didn't see any highways, they say he didn't see an MRT. And I presume, if you ask me, I don't think we need major highways because we're a small island and we can't afford MRT simply not because financially, but because our population is very small. The island we're talking about, with the mainland plus mainland is 1.6 million, not 2 million. And the population growth is very small. And on the island, it's only about 700,000 people. So there's no way a city with 700,000 people and not very densely populated, in the sense that certain areas are densely, but not that we can afford, it is viable. There are better alternative ways of organizing transport, public transport, which I agree. So the question, I guess, I would piggyback on what Chong was saying, is perhaps from your observations the last few days and spending time with Dr. Seri, what are some of the things in Penang which you think we can learn from Singapore?
Thank you, Mahui. Let me say a few words. Actually, I did ask the organizers to put on some Google Earth maps. Can you put on one map? I think there's no comparison between Singapore and Penang, and we shared their visions that they have plenty to fight in Singapore. But the real problem in Penang and Malaysia are the shortage of truly qualified professionals who have the integrity to advise the decision makers. Let's look at the state of the local authorities. Now, years ago, when they promulgated the Planning Act, I made a representation to the minister involved for Parliament, which was being told a lie. They told Parliament that we don't need any more funds to implement the Planning Act. But actually, we have no manpower at all. And in the early days, I made one observation when I visited Sydney, where the Opera House is being built. And we found that the engineers for the Opera House of Sydney are certainly bigger than the number of whole of engineers in Malaysia. So today we're really short of manpower to do basic planning. And so even the understanding of the Planning Act, the structure plan, the local plan is not there. And so seriously, I hope the political people go to a course and learn what planning is all about. And there's a real shortage in this area. But let me ask this question. Look at this map. Can you identify where this is? This is in Seberang Perai on the way to Kheng. And if you go there, right in the middle of the rice field, you see this huge housing block. Who approved it? What is the process of approving? Use the Google map to look at the rest of Penang, look at Sungai Ayah, look at Balik Palau, look at the rest, and look at the proposed reclamation in the south. Look at the actual contours of the sea. A lot of funny business is going on. But if we are really honest to really do the right thing for Penang, you've got to harness the right manpower to advise the decision makers. So anyway, use the Google map, look at it. This doesn't look as terrible, but when you go there, I think there are about 30-story buildings right in the middle of the rice field. Who approved it? So therefore, are we in the position to ask how can the Seberang Authority be improved? Then we come over to Penang Island. It's a complete shortage of manpower. But people come and go and try to boast that we are a smart city. That word is horrible. You can be so smart, by avoiding the problems, let alone trying to solve them. Anyway, that's my little contribution. And really, this is an opportunity to meeting these very passionate people. And I hope when we adjourn, they can interface with you. And I will ask each of them to say a few words. So, Kheng Soon.
About planning, why Singapore can do planning and you can't? It's very simple. It's very simple. Singapore government owns 80% of the land. Your land here is all dissipated. How can you plan? And how can you implement? That's number one problem. It's not only a manpower problem, it's a land problem. If you cannot solve your land issue, that means the state has a control of the land. You cannot do planning. Because all the local landowners will be fighting for maximization of the land value. That's number one. In response to another question about the urbanization, okay? The most important issue which was highlighted to me by Mr. Surin Pitsuwan, who was the Secretary General of ASEAN before he died, because he was a member of Asian Dialogue Society, of which I am a member, as well as Anwar Ibrahim was a member. This is track 2, okay? Track 2 was consisted of 7,000 intellectuals stretching from Turkey right up to Japan, including China, including India, Southeast Asia. So this is the conversation group across the whole of Asia, right? And in the discussions, Surin said this to me point blank, pointed at me. What are you going to do about 450 million poor people in Southeast Asia? Because if you don't do anything good for them, you will have a rural revolt. You will have an extreme religious revolt. Okay? So Penang will not be insulated, neither will Singapore be insulated. That is why Singapore must help in the rural urbanization to save ourselves. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kheng Soon. Maybe I should interpolate before Cheng Siong. If you believe that international groups can solve anything, just remember the recent COP meeting trying to solve climate change, and an attendance of 70,000 people going to that meeting. If you really think that 70,000 can make decisions, each country only needs to have 2 persons. So all these international affairs become junkets. Yeah, and I had experience with this because even Kheng Soon may have forgotten that I was actually on the steering committee that drafted something for the Stockholm Conference on the Environment in 1982. But I already saw that the people taking part in international meetings included 90% of people not worth talking to. So your international group, you're really down to that 4% or whatever. Yeah. Cheng Siong.
I'm not fully aware of the question that you're asking. I thought there was a gentleman at the back who asked me, who mentioned my name and was asking something. Can you repeat that question you were asking?
I think it's not necessary. You just final what you want to say for this, and then you can meet him later.
Sorry?
Just say what you want to end up and meet him later.
Anyway, I'm not sure what's the issue that is being raised for me to answer.
It's called
my own issue.
Cheng Siong, it's called critical issues in architecture and planning.
Oh, that's very simple and quite easy. No. Let's get it right now. I am concerned, at the very beginning, I mentioned that we have the ASEAN, let's talk about ASEAN cities, have reached a point when we are more than just pure physical, architectural or planning, physical aspect of it. We are now moving into aspects of where the society, community, and man, the people, the citizens, should be the focus. Now, if that can be achieved, then I think the quality of architecture and the way we plan things will have a different kind of, how shall I say, strategy. At the moment, the strategy is unfortunately purely, how can I say, high level, upper level decisions. The ground has no say, which is unfortunate now. In time to come, when very soon ASEAN countries will have a higher population of educated people, and these people need a certain kind of architectural quality to really able to participate and contribute to the development of their city, their country, and in fact, the whole idea about knowing what's the next for man to carry on this earth. I am serious about the aspect that we have been liberated, actually. ASEAN has been liberated after the Second World War. We were colonies. We were enslaved in a certain way. And now that we have been given an opportunity to be free, to decide things on our own, why are we not able to go in now? I appreciate first phase, second phase. First stage, second stage were more involved in the numbers, in the achievement of statistical quality, numbers to satisfy the very basic requirement. But very quickly, honestly, very quickly, with urbanization and with city development and with city support, human beings or citizens can get educated and become smart very fast. I'm sure on this table and in this room, we started quite simple-minded. I started very simple-minded. Now, after 50 years, 60 years, I can now think about the world. I can now think about the cities. I can now think about communities. And I'm prepared and able to suggest they are not all totally correct, of course. There are many ideas from many educated people. But the ability to liberate ourselves to the larger role has only just arrived. Please understand, earlier we were under a different system, the system of the Lord, the system of the government controlling the population. And in fact, when architecture first started with the dome, and in Florence with Brunelleschi, the building of the magical dome, everybody get educated by it. So in that case, architecture has that kind of role, the role of liberating the people's mind. And now we must learn to go further from just turning it into a property value, that's all. Beyond the property value, there are a lot of things that will be good, that can help the population to go further and the people to live a much more satisfying life. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Cheng. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Siong. Can you hear me? Remember earlier I said we need people who have the guts to employ you. Remember somebody told me, if I haven't found that you have an international firm that back you up and design the building, I'm going to sack you. Now we need more of such kind of people. Anyway, to depend on yourself, to give yourself a chance to make the little mistakes which you have done by now and move on to the next stage so that you can then do it yourself. And I think all of you can do it. There's no reason why. If I can do it, you can do it. It's a matter of whether you want to do it, you dare to do it, you got the guts to do it, and face up with it. Thank you.
So I think that has to end this so that they can mingle with you and meet you. So, Xiaowun, can we end the session by just simple applause again?
Applause. Thank you so much. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for the sharing. Thanks for attending. But before we all move, it's picture time. Picture for Bokim to be representing the PAM Northern Chapter to present a token of appreciation to all who are on stage today. So shall we start with the chair, Symposium Chair, Datuk Seri?